We have talked about the basic notion of a parabola and what a parabola looks like, but we haven't actually graphed it yet. So that's what we're going to do today. So everybody should hopefully have this piece of paper on their desk, and if you don't have this on your desk, make sure you get it. So let's go ahead and highlight our title. And let's get started. So it says the equation of a parabola is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So we've seen this equation 20,000 bajillion times. A is always next to x squared, b is always next to x, c is always my constant. We also have known, we've drilled into your heads that whenever you see an x squared, your brain thinks factor, which means the graph is going to be a parabola, which looks like this graph. So there are major parts to a parabola that we have to talk about today. So the first one we're going to talk about is the axis of symmetry. And let me highlight axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry, it is a Vux line that cuts the parabola into two equal pieces. So a axis of symmetry, remember being symmetrical. It's a Vux line, so remember Vux lines always look like this. It's a Vux line that cuts the parabola into two equal pieces. So if I were to go over to this parabola that's given, my Vux line cuts my parabola. My axis of symmetry cuts my parabola into two equal pieces. So that's where my axis of symmetry would actually be. So now let's talk about vertex. Vertex, it is the lowest. I'm just going to write in this color so you can see the difference. It is the lowest or highest point on a parabola. My vertex, it's the lowest or the highest point on the parabola. Remember we talked about this word when we first started talking about parabolas. I was really mature. I called it the butt. The vertex is the butt of your parabola. So the butt of my parabola is right here. My vertex is always an ordered pair. It is a point. So make sure you know that. So the point, the vertex of this given parabola would be 1, -4. Zeros. If you don't know what zeros are, I'm not going to be happy. What do zeros mean? They mean the x-intercepts. What do x-intercepts mean? Where parabola touches x-axis. So, where's one of my zeros? -1, 0, that's 1. Where's my other 0? 3, 0. So my x-intercepts are at -1, 0 and at 3, 0. How about y-intercepts? Let's see, y-intercepts. Y-intercepts is where the parabola touches the y-axis. So my parabola touches the y-axis right there, which is -3, 0. So those vocabulary words are huge because if you know the axis of symmetry, the vertex, the 0, and the y-intercept of your parabola, you can graph it no problem. So let's now talk about a parabola that can open up or down. We talked about this very briefly when we first started talking about parabolas, but let's go into a little bit more detail here. So a parabola opens upwards. It opens up when a is greater than 0. So remember y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. When a is greater than 0, it opens up like a smiley face. So when a is greater than 0, what does that mean a has to be? That means a has to be, must be positive. So when a is positive, it opens up like a smiley face. How about when it opens down? Down like a frowny face. A parabola opens down when a is less than 0. So when a is less than 0, it opens down, which means a must be negative. So, all right, let's now go through and let's find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, the 0, and the y-intercepts of each of these. So axis of symmetry is easy because it makes that symmetrical line. It's that vux line that cuts my parabola into 2 equal pieces. So my axis of symmetry is right here. That's always a vux line. So what is that? That's going to be vux is x equals, and where is it on the x-axis? 1. All right, how about the vertex? The vertex is the butt. My butt's right there. So what's that vertex? That's, let me not write in yellow and red and black. That is 1, negative 4. All right, let's now talk about zeros. Zeros are x-intercepts. So x-intercepts there and there. I got 2 of them. So what's one of them? Negative 1, 0. My other one is 3, 0. And then the last one, y-intercept. So when this touches my y-axis is right there. What value is that? That is 0, negative 3. So go ahead and pause this video, and I want you to try axis of symmetry, vertex, zeros, and y-intercepts on my frowny parabola on your own, and then unpause it, and we'll go over it together. So if I do axis of symmetry, it cuts it perfectly down the middle. So what's that going to be? X equals 2. All right, how about my vertex? Where's my vertex? My vertex is here, which is 2, 1. My zeros, here and here, so that's 1, 0, and 3, 0. And my y-intercept is where my parabola touches the y-axis, right there, which is 0, negative 3. So hopefully you all are okay with finding, when I give you a graph, you finding this information. One thing I also want to mention that hopefully you notice, the axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Look at your vertex. What's your x value? 1. Come over here and look at the axis of symmetry. X equals 2. Look at your vertex. What's your x value? It's 2. So your axis of symmetry is the x value of the vertex. So if we write that down, because that's huge, the x value of the vertex is the axis of symmetry. So just kind of little things just to pick up on. So let's go ahead and keep going. All right, so it says determine A, B, and C and determine if the following equations will open up or will open down. So A equals B equals C equals. So A equals 2, B equals 3, C equals 3. So is this going to open up or is it going to open down? It's going to open up. Why? Because A is positive. It's going to open up. I don't even care about B and C. I'm just writing it because the directions told me to. All right, how about number 2? A equals negative 1, B equals 2, C equals negative 5. Is this going to open up or open down? It's going to open down because A is negative. Last one, pause this video, try this on your own, and then unpause it. A equals 1/2, B equals 4, C equals negative 9. This opens up because A is positive. So hopefully you're okay with determining whether it opens up or it opens down. It doesn't even matter about what B and C are. All that matters is that your leading coefficient, that A, is positive for it to open up, or A is negative for it to open down. So if I just give you an equation and I go, okay, great, graph this parabola, life's going to be a little bit trickier. So let's go ahead and see what that's going to look like. Flip your paper for me, please. In order to graph a parabola successfully, you need to know how to find these pieces of information. If you do not have those pieces of information memorized, you're not going to be able to graph it. So just keep that in mind as we are progressing through this. So how do I find the axis of symmetry? So how you find the axis of symmetry, it's a formula. So I'm going to use the formula x equals negative b over 2a. So I'm going to plug b in for b and a in for a, and then I'm going to get my axis of symmetry. If you don't have that formula memorized, you're not going to be able to graph it, so be careful. All right, so now how do I find the vertex? I'm going to take answer from axis of symmetry, plug it into x, and find y. My answer must be an ordered pair. So to find my vertex, and honestly this is probably the hardest one because you forget, you're going to take your answer, your x value from the axis of symmetry, you're going to plug it into x to find y. And then I'm just going to write my answer as an ordered pair. My x value, whatever I plugged in, comma, whatever I got for my y value. Alright, next one. How do I find zeros? Let's hope I don't have to bash my head into any walls today. Zeros mean the same thing as x-intercepts. How do I find x-intercepts? Plug 0 into y. And then I'm going to solve. How? Factor. Next one. You should be pros at finding zeros by now. Last one. How do I find y-intercepts? How do I find y-intercepts? Plug 0 into every x and solve. So, let's go ahead and start this out. Notice if I look at my first example, it's telling me all of the things I need to know. So, I want to graph y equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. So first thing it asks me, does it open up or down? So I'm just going to immediately go ahead before I even start and write a equals, b equals, c equals. Chances are I'm going to need them. So what does a equal? 1. B equals -4. C equals 4. Alright, so does this open up or down? It opens up. How do I know? A is positive. Axis of symmetry. So alright, axis of symmetry. How do I find the axis of symmetry? I got to use the formula x equals -b, the opposite of b, over 2a. So b is -4, so the opposite of b is 4 over 2 times a, which is 1. So this equals 4 over 2, which just equals 2. So I'm going to write x equals 2. Alright, so now I'm going to do the vertex. Vertex. I got to plug, what's it say? Plug answer from axis of symmetry into into x to find y. Answer must be an ordered pair. So I'm going to take my answer from my axis of symmetry, so x equals 2. And every time I see a 2 in this equation, every time I see an x in this equation, I'm going to plug in 2, and then I'm going to solve. So I have y equals 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 2. So now I'm just going to solve. Y equals 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 4. And really, if I'm cheating, I'm just going to type all this in my calculator and hit enter. But because I'm doing this all by hand, I'll go ahead and do it. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. So negative 4 plus 4, y is 0. So I'm going to write my answer as an ordered pair. So the x value I plugged in was 2. The y value is 0. Hopefully you're with me. Let's not go do zeros. It's a lot of steps for one problem. It's kind of obnoxious, which is why you don't usually have very many of them. Zeros. How do I find zeros? Plug 0 into y, solve for x. How? Factor. So 0 equals x squared minus 4x plus 4. Factor 4 and negative 4. What are your factors? Negative 2 and negative 2. So x minus 2, x minus 2. I've got to split it up. So x equals 2 and x equals 2. So really x just equals 2. So if I turn this into an ordered pair, it's going to be 2, 0. Last but not least, y-intercepts. How do I find y-intercepts? I got to plug 0 into every x and solve. So I'm going to plug 0 into every x in this equation, and then I'm going to find y. So y equals 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 4. Whew, all right, 0 squared, that's gone. 4 times 0, that's gone. So y is just going to equal 4. So if I turn this into an ordered pair, I have 0, 4. Whew, all right. So now I'm good to start graphing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to graph that axis of symmetry first. So axis of symmetry is x equals 2. So it's a Vux line. So x equals 2 is right here. And I'm going to do a Vux line. And I'm just going to make a dotted line for my axis of symmetry just to show that it's there, but I don't really need it. All right, so now I'm going to graph my vertex, which is at 2, 0. I'm not going to, my zeros are 2, 0, which is the same thing as my vertex, so I don't need to plot that. And I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 0, 4. So notice this problem does not make a perfect parabola. Notice if I were to connect my dots, I'd only have 1/2 of my parabola. Well, parabolas are symmetrical. Since you know this point, I can reflect it to the other side so I can get a U. So notice that this green dot is 2 tick marks from my red dotted line. So I'm going to count to my dotted line 1, 2. I'm not going to go past my dotted line 1, 2. And I'm going to plot another point right there. And that point right there is going to give me the reflection point, which is going to make me be able to make my parabola. So this doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does. So notice now I have 3 points, so I can graph my parabola that goes through those corners. Make sure you're making V's and you're not making, make sure you're making U's and you're not making V's. Make sure you're attempting that this graph is relatively curved and it goes through the points and you have the arrows. So this problem is actually a little bit harder than most of them. So let's go ahead and let's try the next one. So let's keep going. Next one. So first thing I want to do is label A, B, and C to make my life easier. A is -2, B is -8, and C is 10. So does it open up or down? It opens down. So it's going to open down like a frowny face. Axis of symmetry, so we got to find that. I got to do the formula. X equals -b over 2a. So negative b is positive 8. 2 times a, which is negative 2. So I have 8 over negative 4, which is negative 2. So axis symmetry, x equals, because it's a flux line, negative 2. So now I got to find the vertex. How do I find the vertex? Well, the vertex, I got to take my x value for my axis of symmetry, and I got to plug it into every x in that equation to find y. So negative 2 times negative 2 squared plus, minus 8 times negative 2 plus 10. So you have a couple options. You can type all this in your calculator, or you can do it by hand. I'm going to cheat the system here, and I'm going to type all that in my calculator. Negative 2 parenthesis 2 squared minus 8 parenthesis negative 2 plus 10. And fabulous. I'm changing this problem, and I didn't even notice it until just now. That's perfect. Because when I typed all this in, here's why I'm changing it. I got y equals 18. So my vertex, my y value is going to be 18. If I look at this coordinate plane, is that really going to give me, am I going to be able to plot 18 on the y-axis? No. So I'm going to change this problem. Sorry, so let's see here. We're not going to change it detrimentally. I'm just going to change it, let me see here. Instead of it being 10, I'm just going to make it 1. So instead of 10, I'm just going to make it 1. So, and it's not letting me erase this. I'm just going to scratch it out. So let's try that again. Negative 2 parenthesis negative 2 squared minus 8 parenthesis negative 2 plus 1. I get y equals 9, which is a little bit better. So if my vertex is always an ordered pair, my x value is negative 2. My y value is 9. Alright, hopefully I haven't lost you. Let's keep going. There's a lot of steps on these problems. Zeros. I'm going to plug 0 into y and solve for x. Alright, hold on one second. Okay, I lied. This problem is not great. I want you to do this. Sorry. It's like I'm here, but I'm virtually torturing you, so you're welcome. Go to the next page. Alright, looking at my answer key, this one is going to work, so you're welcome. I'm not torturing you anymore. Well, for now. Let's try this one. First thing I'm going to do, label A, B, and C. A is negative 1, B is negative 6, C is negative 8. So is it going to open up or is it going to open down? It's going to open down. Alright, axis of symmetry. I'm going to do the negative B over 2A. So negative B is positive 6, because it's originally negative 6, over 2 times A is negative 1. So I have 6 times negative 2, which is negative 3. So x equals negative 3. Alright, so how do I find the vertex? I got to take my x value from my axis of symmetry and plug it into every x and then solve for y. So if I alternate to a different color. So I have y equals negative times negative 3 squared minus 6x, but I got to plug in negative 3 minus 8. So I'm going to type all of this into my calculator. I'm going to type negative, I'm going to type parenthesis negative 3 squared, I'm going to type minus 6, and then parenthesis negative 3, and then parenthesis negative, and then just type negative 8. I get y equals 1. Again, if you want to, you can do all of that by hand. It'd be a little bit trickier, it takes a little bit more time when you have a fabulous tool in front of you. So my vertex is an ordered pair. My x value is negative 3, my y value is 1. Just like on that last problem, I knew things were messing up because my vertex was going to be too big. So if you ever get a vertex that's super big, you know you're messing up somewhere. So let's now talk about zeros. Zeros, how do I find them? I got to plug 0 into y. and solve for x. How am I going to solve for x? I'm going to factor. So notice when you have to factor this, your leading coefficient is negative. Does anybody remember what happens when I have a negative leading coefficient? Well, I have to divide everybody by -1. So I have a -1 on the outside of x squared plus 6x plus 8. And now I'm going to factor 8 and 6. Factors of 8, that makes 6. 4 and 2. So I have x plus 4 and x plus 2. So I'm going to split all of these up. X equals -2. X equals -4. -1 equals 0. Is that a true statement? No, so it's not an answer. So my zeros are -4, 0 and -2, 0. Alright, last one, and then we can get to the fun part with graphing. Y-intercept. How do I find it? I gotta plug 0 into every x. So this is gone, y equals -8. I love y-intercepts, they're the easiest. So I have 0, -8. Alright, so we are now good to graph. And when we graph, we just go straight down the line. So I'm going to graph the axis of symmetry first. X equals -3. That's right here. I'm going to make a dotted line. Alright. I'm going to graph my vertex, which is -3, 1. That's right there. I'm going to graph my zeros, which is -2, 0 and -4, 0. And I'm going to graph my y-intercept. Let's do yellow, if I can get it to work. My y-intercept is 0, -8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So to make this completely symmetrical, if I look at this, I have my vertex, and then I have this point and this point. Notice this, my two purple points are one block each away from that green line. So to make my symmetrical, my reflection point of my y-intercept, I'm going to count the blocks. How many blocks between this black point and my axis of symmetry? So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go 3 blocks past it. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to plot a point right there to get my reflection point. Because now that I have my reflection point, I can immediately go ahead and graph my parabola. So we have one more problem on this worksheet. I want you to pause this video and try this one on your own. And then when you guys all get to a point where you are lost or a point where we're all done, then unpause it, we'll go over it. One thing I do want to mention is notice on this problem up here, this parabola opens down like a sad face because I told it was going to open down. I knew it was going to open down. So if you ever say it's going to open down but it's actually making a smiley face, you know you're wrong. So go ahead and pause this video, try this last example on your own, and then unpause this video and I will go over it. So if I label A, B, and C first, A is 1, B is 2. Hold on a second. Let me make sure this problem's good. Yep. And C is -8. Alright, so it's going to open up. I'm going to find my axis of symmetry. -B over 2A. So -B, so -2 over 2 times 1. So -2 over 2, which is -1. So x equals -1. So now to find my vertex, I got to plug -1 into my equation. -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 8. So I'm going to type all that in my calculator. I get -9. So I have -1, -9. That's my vertex. So now I'm going to find my zeros. I'm going to plug 0 in for y. And I'm going to factor. Factors of -8 that make 2, 4 and -2. So I have x plus 4 and I have x minus 2. Because I have an equal sign, I got to split it up. x equals -4, x equals 2. So I have -4, 0, and I have 2, 0. Y-intercepts, plug 0 into all my x's. What am I left with? -8. So now I'm good to graph. So I'm going to graph my axis of symmetry first because I always work my way down. So -1 is here, and I'm going to draw my dotted line. So now I'm going to draw my vertex, which is -1, -9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's right there. I'm now going to plot my zeros at -4, 0, and 2, 0. And notice those are perfectly symmetrical with each other. I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 0, -8. And I'm going to make my reflection point on 0, -8. So notice 0, -8 is one point to my axis of symmetry. It's one block. So I'm going to go one block past it, and I'm going to plot my reflection point. So I get the same number of points on each side of my axis of symmetry. So now all I'm going to do is make my parabola. And I'm done. So you're going to have some practice on this, but please make sure if you have any questions you are asking them because you will take a test on this next week sometime.